bonjour, and welcome to the Amateur Detective Club. This club is exactly how it sounds. A bunch of amateurs talking about their favorite mysteries. So if you encounter a real mystery or a murder, contact the proper authorities. Do not come to us. We do not know what we are doing. But enjoy the program. Allons-y, let us begin.
Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de
And now call to order this meeting of the Amateur Detectives Club. I am Tristan Miller. Oh, kid cop.
I'm Miles Neuvirth, boy detective.
And I'm Melissa Meli, the spy.
Can we start saying, oh, boy detective?
Oh, boy detective.
Oh, boy.
So we're looking at the tragedy at Marsdon Manor.
Yes.
We sure are.
It is a short story
In the collection Poirot Investigates.
by Agatha Christie.
It is the second short story in Poirot Investigates.
Yes, and we are still listening to the audible version that was performed by David Suchet.
He is so good in this.
He's so good.
It is oh boy, one of my notes is he's just a genius. I consistently forget it is one person doing all the voices, including the narration, because I'm like, that guy doesn't sound like anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually does a fair bit of back and forth in this one, like one-word answers, and it's two very different accents, and it's really cool.
And then also, his character choice for, there's a doctor that is just oh boy, it's just very good. And then also the gardener, and then also, obviously, his Poirot is very good always.
Of course.
And he's always
Wait, can we try and reach out to this guy on Twitter?
I'll see.
I think.
I'll be like, hey, Hugh follows us. Hugh, can you get us to him to follow us?
Yeah, get us in.
You guys know.
Come on, Hugh. Come on,
Hugh,
help us out
Hugh.
here.
Help
Hugh,
us out.
Hugh.
Close personal friend of the show and avid listener, Hugh.
Okay.
So but the first thing I noted, we were in it, and you're less than a minute in, and there's already another $50,000 in insurance.
Of course.
Oh, cool, great, a second time in a row.
Should we,
$50,000 in insurance?
Yes, it's always $50,000.
Do you want to sum up?
Should we summarize? A little dual summary?
Before we begin, though, I would like to say this. This story has a lot of talk about suicide, so if that's a problem for you, don't read or listen to this one, or this episode maybe, because we're going to be talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, good point. Good point. Thank you. Cool. I'll sum it up. I can do it.
Yay!
I listened to it 3 times because it's so short and easily palatable.
It's like a appetizer.
Oh.
It's like a little...
Last one was a snack. This is an appetizer.
Yeah, it's like a little bit. A little bit before
an
dinner.
amuse-bouche.
That's it! An amuse-bouche. Whereas I'm an amuse-douche. That was...
Amuse-bouching.
Oh,
This is all good. This is all good.
fantastic radio content.
The mighty
All right,
bouche.
and go.
Cool. So we go right into it, and we walk into Hastings, who is watching Poirot pack up his stuff. And he's like, oh, I thought you weren't going to come with me in time. So he found out that Mr. Maltravers was killed and had just taken out a huge life insurance policy. They say that the cause of death was determined internal hemorrhage. And he has a beautiful young wife. But the insurance company had determined that he was on the verge of bankruptcy. So they're concerned that potentially he committed suicide. And if he did, the policy would be forfeit. So they hired Poirot to investigate.
5 fit. 4 fit. 3 fit. 2 fit. 1 fit.
Red
Lift
fit,
off fit.
blue fit. Yeah, I think that is that a good
That's a good
amount
sum
of
up. Yeah, that's a good
for
start.
now.
Yeah.
My next note goes with the first clue that we get.
Okay, great.
Because I nailed this one.
Oh.
The first clue that they gave us,
Yeah.
he was out in the field by the rook rifle, And then I have a note that just like where I was like, I wonder if it's this, and I just laid out the whole case.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess we should.
I'm jazzed about it.
So I guess I should mention. So Poirot and Hastings go and see Dr. Bernard, who had examined the body.
Bernard.
Yes. And he has a rifle. So Maltravers had a rifle beside him.
A rook rifle.
A rook rifle. And no evidence of being shot, so there was no need for an autopsy. Because it was super clear that always is,
Two things.
reliable.
One, I assume a rook rifle is a rifle for shooting rooks, i.e. crows.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah,
I didn't know what that was.
you get rid of your pests from your farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a small projectile, like probably like a 22.
Yeah, like a smaller caliber. I actually looked it up as soon as they said that. So my note, like he was laying out by a rook rifle, and I'm currently researching the power of a rook rifle, just like to form my theory.
Sure. Also, David Suchet? His performance as Dr. Bernard is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. He's just like, oh, I'm an old sort of plummy English doctor. And, well, he's probably just dead.
Yeah.
Nothing
It was like
suspicious.
he saw the blood on on his lips. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what internal hemorrhaging looks like.
That's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
I think he had a family history as well.
I don't know.
Potentially.
But no, he was also, he claims to, Dr. Bernard claims that Mr. What is his name?
Maltravers.
is a Christian scientist.
Yeah, he had heard that he was a Christian scientist.
So he has never gone to a doctor.
Right.
So
I guess, yeah.
is the inference there.
Okay.
So he would never know, like, maybe, yeah.
So it's really fun after they leave the doctor.
Nope.
Poirot asks Hastings what he thinks of him.
Oh,
and
right.
he says that he is an ass.
Yep.
And Poirot's like, oh, well, yes, Hastings, you're just such a good judge of character. And Hastings is surprised because, he doesn't think that Poirot is being sarcastic. But then he gets a little glint in his eye, and he adds, except, of course, in the case where there is a beautiful woman.
Yes. Which is
Hastings
very...
looks at him coldly.
Dunk!
Yeah.
Got him.
Yeah.
It's so true.
I love how Poirot, a Poirot officer, is so kind and good, but also dunks like no other.
Oh, yeah.
He just doesn't have time for that.
He is a sass master. He is so sassy. It's very good.
And assassin.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. So they get to Marsdon Manor, and they meet the grieving widow who has been crying and crying.
Like a ghost.
Yes, and her eyes are very red and blah, 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 blah. So, yes, she relays the story that he had been out rook hunting, and then, he came, she was told that he was dead. So Poirot examines this rifle, and she starts talking, Mrs. Maltravers starts talking about how he had a strong premonition of his own death. Like, he knew he was going to die. He had probably had another one of these hemorrhages and just saw it coming, so they had to take out that insurance policy.
Yep. And there were 2 shots fired with the gun.
Right. That's what he determines from examining the rifle. So then later, Captain Black, this man who had been headed to East Africa, arrives after he had heard about the murder. And Mrs. Maltravers is not happy about it.
Not at all.
No, he had been there telling stories the day for
Tuesday
dinner.
evening.
Tuesday evening, the day before Mr. Maltravers died. So they had sat down to dinner, and he had told them a bunch of stories. So Poirot does this little exercise with him. It's a word association game. And from that word association game he plays, Poirot deduces that Captain Black has no guilt in the death, but that he had told a story about a lion and a story about someone he knows who shot himself with a rook rifle on a farm.
Yes. Now, I want to go back for just a second.
Yes.
And I think I brought this up in a previous episode, but Poirot does this really great thing when he's talking to Dr. Bernard, which is the Columbo thing. The series Columbo. Yes.
No, but go on.
Okay. He was famous for doing interviews with suspects, and then he's about to leave, and he turns and goes, one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, a lot of people give Columbo credit, but Poirot does that all the time. And he does it in this story of, like, one more little thing. What about this?
Yeah.
And it's just very good. And I just love that sort of thing. And I just want him to have credit, is basically what I want.
Oh, no, for sure. Poirot is great at that. It's really fun. The word association game is kind of
very
ridiculous.
good. It's very fun, too, though. What's fun is to also, if you're listening to it for like a second time, say you're doing a podcast and you want to refresh your memory, you answer the questions that he does and see what you come up with. It's a fun game. Are you the murderer?
Rifle, farm.
Rifle, Feifel.
Rifle goes west.
Rifle goes west.
There you are.
Yep.
Now we know how Miles and Tristan's brains work.
Rhyming is fun.
Yeah,
Yep.
basically.
Rhyme crimes.
So
Rhymes of the heart. Rhyme.
Bust a crime.
Rhymes of the heart. What am I going to do with all these melons?
yes. So they do an investigation, and of course, we find out that Maltravers had actually been shot in the mouth. Which was why, in the same manner that this suicide was described. And so he has a little blood on his lip.
But, important fact, a rook rifle is a rifle, so if he were to shoot himself, he would have to use his toe. A la Hemingway or the guy from Nirvana, Kurt Cobain.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I couldn't remember Kurt Cobain's name.
Yeah.
I was like, Kurt Vonnegut? That is not correct.
No, that's not the same guy.
No, but could you imagine if Kurt Vonnegut was the
Same guy as Kurt Cobain?
Yeah, a ghost.
Ghost.
But
These, because the rifle isn't very powerful, it
Yeah.
went in and messed up his brain, but it didn't actually leave an exit wound because it couldn't pierce the skull.
Right,
so there
right.
was no outward bullet holes.
Right. Yeah, no. So why would we have done an autopsy? Obviously, internal hemorrhaging caused by a bullet. Anyway.
ooh. And 2 shots though. That's very good. That comes in later. Yeah.
Is it? I don't remember.
Well, let's get to what happens, and then I'll say.
Okay, so then the best thing in the world happens.
Oh, yes. The best thing in the world. It's incredible. It's just buck wild. It's like, okay, cool.
So Poirot suggests that people have been saying that the house is haunted. And then they sit down for dinner with Mrs. Maltravers before they leave.
Who is known to be a medium-ish.
Yeah.
Medium rare.
Yeah. He says that to her, like, putting in her head that, she probably...
You have a connection to the other side.
world.
You've got friends on the other side there.
So then, like, some weird stuff starts happening. We hear, like, a rapping on the window, and we see a figure exactly like that. We see a figure appear, and it gets, like, creepier and creepier, and the locked door swings open, and the widow screams as she sees a man who is her husband.
Zut alors.
Yep. And Hastings says a really wonderful line that's that a suicide, I was reminded that a suicide cannot rest.
Now, what's really cool about this performance that David Chusset gives is incredible, because I was very frightened the whole time.
Yeah, it's super good.
And he's just in it too. Yeah. Like the way the widow's reacting is just like, oh, frantic and bad, and like, oh no, this poor woman.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And then finally, the ghost points at Mrs. Maltravers, and she has...
You will learn of the spirit of Christmas.
Yep. No.
3 ghosts shall visit you.
Since this is an audio medium, Tristan is pointing like the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
He is really mixing my ghosts
Oh,
out.
yeah. There's so many different
And
ghosts.
Slimer's there, too.
Weird.
Weird.
All the ghosts come into this story, even the ones that haven't been invented yet. The ghost points at her, and she has blood on her hands, and she's very, very upset. And she confesses to the murder
The Moida.
of her husband. So, of course, Poirot is like, hey, guess what, actually... This actor is real good, isn't he? He looks so much like the dead guy.
Made an impromptu haunted house for these people.
My favorite thing
What?
My favorite thing is that all this happens. She's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I killed him. I'm terribly sorry." Oh. And he just goes, "Lights," and then
Yeah.
the lights come up.
Yep.
And it's so dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a stone cold G. This Poirot.
Yeah.
It's very good. And yeah, he's like, well, and you probably don't want to touch her hand because red paint does stains, so it does marks, so.
Such a little pardonnez-moi. Like,
Yep.
oh, there it is. But like, but yeah, it's so wonderful because he like at one point grabs her hand comfortingly and he puts the red paint on
Yeah.
her like, oh, you son of a.
He did the whole thing.
Impromptu haunted house.
It's like an improv anywhere, but like for crime solving.
Yeah. And I don't remember why I wrote this down, but at some point, Poirot says to Hastings, "As I always tell you, you see nothing."
Yes, he does that right away. Like after they leave Marston Manor the first time, I think. It's like, "As always, you see nothing, Hastings.
Yeah.
Why are you even here? You are an excellent distraction for when I want to do things, I suppose." But the reason the two shots are important is basically the thing that he proffers up is the story. Is they're out, like they hear the story about the farm.
Yeah.
And they're out with the rook rifle the next day, and he is just like, it's like, "Well, how's this gun work?" Bang, one shot. And he goes, "Oh, but like, how would you, baby, can you show me how someone might kill themselves, please?"
Oh, yes, sure, darling. Let me put this gun in my
This
mouth.
loaded gun into my mouth.
No problem. See, it's like this. And she puts her hand on the trigger, and she's like this, squeeze. Yep.
Womp 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 womp.
Blew him away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't have very many notes for this one. It was just like the first one. I was like, "Oh, a rook rifle. Maybe it was the soft pallet thing." And then my next note is just nailed it, surrounded by gun emojis. So,
Yeah.
It's very good. So, who did you think she did it? How good was you nailed it. How good was your detective skills?
I didn't guess.
Yeah.
I didn't guess at all.
I didn't really either. I thought maybe the doctor initially.
Oh.
Just because, like, he was clearly wrong about, like, he was just
so bad at his job.
Yeah, he was like, I'm like, are you just bad or are you covering something up?
Right.
Bernard.
Yeah, and the whole Christian Scientist thing is important because, like, she had told the doctor he was a Christian Scientist,
Which was untrue.
which was untrue.
Yeah.
So that he wouldn't,
Do an
examine
autopsy,
him
yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So she was behind it from the very start, and she, was planning it basically from the insurance policy being taken out. So,
yeah.
You are not in good hands.
no, this is going to go bad for you.
How many mustaches out of 5?
Oh, I'm going to say 4. This one was a lot of fun. And it had a haunted house, and it made me feel good about myself as a detective. So I am biased.
Yeah, totally. 4. I was in this one. Also, Hastings is way less insufferable.
Yes.
He gets way less pages to be insufferable.
Yep.
No.
And he's not horny at all.
He's not horny at all. Even this pretty lady, he's like, he's a little sympathetic to her, but like he doesn't get gross and misogynistic, and he actually kind of hopes that Captain Black will eventually comfort her instead of going after her himself. Thank God. But yeah,
I'll give him 5 out of 5. This is the best one yet.
loved
Best
it.
one yet.
Best one yet.
Super good.
So, I want to thank you guys for listening. And also you guys for listening to me talk right now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If you want to join the discussion, you can go to our Facebook group, Amateur Detective Club, and you can ask to be let in, and we will probably let you in, as it
Probably.
is just us right there now. Please, please. And you can follow us at ADC Pod on Twitter and talk to us there.
Thank you to Amélie Lafond for our theme song. She sang Le Vion Rose in French for us, which is delightful.
Yes, a
And
good 30
to-
seconds of it, so there's no copyright.
Yeah.
Fair use, fair use.
Fair use.
Anyway.
And to Laurel, yes?
Lauren
Lauren.
Heath.
Oh, that was her. She was doing a cute
Laurel
thing on
Wreath,
Twitter.
yeah. She does it very
Heath
good.
She's
did
an
our art, and
incredible
she's
Go to
great.
Instagram, Lauren Heath Art on Instagram, and look
There
at her
we go.
art there. It's very good art. I now call to an end Is that how I do it?
No.
Meeting adjourned.
This meeting sojourned?
Yeah.
Meeting meeting journeyed.
Meeting a germaphobed.
Meeting adjourned.
Gavel sound.
C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, la juré pour la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat.
As far as I know, like suicidality, like the thought of wanting to kill oneself is something that is usually not the lengthiest period of time, but while you're in it, it seems like all that you'll ever experience. It seems like it's that and it's that forever, but I would ask you that if there have been times in the past that it hasn't been that, then for sure it's not true that it's always.
Yeah.
And life is a constant change.
Yeah.
Like everything that's bad will go away. Everything that's good will go away.
yeah.
Everything will go. Every emotion that you've ever had, suicide, like that feeling is usually fleeting, relatively speaking. And so I would just encourage you to like think of it like just I'll put it off for one more day.
Yeah.
Just wait and let time be your accomplice.
Absolutely.
And so I'll say that about yourself as well. Like let suicide assisted by time. Let
yes.
Father Time be the only murderer.
Chrono
Please.
suicide
Ah,
pact.
that's great.
That was Mike Kaplan with some positive nihilism for you. Hi, I'm Tristan Miller, host of Positive and Negative. It's an hour-long interview podcast where I talk to artists about mental health and how it affects their process. It comes out every other Friday on iTunes and also SoundCloud.